Greetings from Exam Heist. We have identified important exam questions. Practice these important questions 2-3 times to get 100% success in exam. Subscribe and comment, share PDF in the below comment section to get PDF of these 40 important questions. If you want to access full dump, please visit www.examheist.com. We have 24/7 support available for your doubts and exam queries. Question 1. Your company has a single on-premises data center in Washington, D.C. The Azure region has a peering location in Washington, D.C. The company only has Azure resources in the East As region. You need to implement ExpressRoute to support up to 1 Gbps. You must use only ExpressRoute unlimited data plans. The solution must minimize costs. Which type of ExpressRoute circuits should you create? Option A, ExpressRoute Local. Option B, ExpressRoute Direct. Option C, ExpressRoute Premium. Option D, ExpressRoute Standard. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, ExpressRoute Local. Question 2. You are planning an Azure point-to-site P2S VPN that will use OpenVPN. Users will authenticate by an on-premises Active Directory domain. Which additional service should you deploy to support the VPN authentication? Option A, an Azure Key Vault. Option B, a Redis server. Option C, a certification authority. Option D, Azure Active Directory. Azure AD Application Proxy. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B, a Redis server. Question 3. You plan to configure BGP for a site-to-site VPN connection between a data center and Azure. Which two Azure resources should you configure? Each correct answer presents a part of the solution. Choose two. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. Option A, Virtual Network Gateway. Option B, Azure Application Gateway. Option C, Azure Firewall. Option D, a Local Network Gateway. Option E, Azure Front Door. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, Virtual Network Gateway. Option D, a Local Network Gateway. Question 4. You failed to establish a site-to-site VPN connection between your company's main office and an Azure virtual network. You need to troubleshoot what prevents you from establishing the IPsec tunnel. Which diagnostic log should you review? Option A, IKE diagnostic log. Option B, root diagnostic log. Option C, gateway diagnostic log. Option D, tunnel diagnostic log. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, IKE diagnostic log. Question 5. You have an Azure virtual network and an on-premises data center. You are planning a site-to-site VPN connection between the data center and the virtual network. Which two resources should you include in your plan? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note, each correct selection is worth 1 point. Option A, user-defined route. Option B, a virtual network gateway. Option C, Azure Firewall. Option D, Azure Web Application Firewall, WAF. Option E, an on-premises data gateway. Option F, an Azure Application Gateway. Option G, a local network gateway. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B, a virtual network gateway. Option G, a local network gateway. Question 6. Your company has an on-premises network and 3 Azure subscriptions named Subscription 1, Subscription 2, and Subscription 3. The departments at the company use the Azure subscriptions as shown in the following table. All the resources in the subscriptions are in either the West or Azure region. or the West US to Azure region, you plan to connect all the subscriptions to the on-premises network by using express route. What is the minimum number of express route circuits required? Option A 1, option B 2, option C 3, option D 4, option E 5. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A 1. Question 7. Your company has offices in New York and Amsterdam. The company has an Azure subscription. Both offices connect to Azure by using a site-to-site VPN connection. The office in Amsterdam uses resources in the North Europe Azure region. The office in New York uses resources in the East US Azure region. You need to implement express route circuits to connect each office to the nearest Azure region. Once the express route circuits are connected, the on-premises computers in the Amsterdam office must be able to connect to the on-premises servers in the New York office by using the express route circuits. Which express route option should you use? Option A, express route fast path. Option B, express route global reach. Option C, express route direct. Option D, express route local. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B, express route global reach. Question 8. You have an Azure virtual network named VNet1 and an on-premises network. The on-premises network has policy-based VPN devices in VNet1. You deploy a virtual network gateway named GW1 that uses a SKU of VPN GW1 and is route-based. You have a site-to-site VPN connection for GW1 as shown in the following exhibit. You need to ensure that the on-premises network can connect to the route-based GW1. What should you do before you create the connection? Option A, set connection mode to responder only. Option B, set PGP to enabled. Option C, set use Azure private IP address to enabled. Option D, set IPsec policy to custom. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D, set IPsec policy to custom. Question 9. You are planning an Azure deployment that will contain 3 virtual networks in the East US Azure region as shown in the following table. A site-to-site VPN will connect VNet1 to your company's on-premises network. You need to recommend a solution that ensures that the virtual machines on all the virtual networks can communicate with the on-premises network. The solution must minimize costs. What should you recommend for VNet2 and VNet3? Option A, VNet to VNet VPN connections. Option B, peering. Option C, service endpoints. Option D, route tables. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B, peering. Question 10. Your company has an office in New York. The company has an Azure subscription that contains the virtual networks shown in the following table. You need to connect the virtual networks to the office by using express route. The solution must meet the following requirements. The connection must have up to 1 Gbps of bandwidth. The office must have access to all the virtual networks. Costs must be minimized. How many express route circuits should be provisioned? And which express route SKU should you enable? Option A, 1 express route premium circuit. Option B, 2 express route premium circuits. Option C, 4 express route standard circuits. Option D, 1 express route standard circuit. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, 1 express route premium circuit. Question 11. You have an Azure subscription that contains a virtual network. You plan to deploy an Azure VPN gateway and 90 site-to-site VPN connections. The solution must meet the following requirements. Ensure that the site-to-site VPN connections remain available if an Azure data center fails. Minimize costs. Which gateway SKU should you specify? Option A, VPN GW1 AZ. Option B, VPN GW2 AZ. Option C, VPN GW4 AZ. Option D, VPN GW5 AZ. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C, VPN GW4 AZ. Question 12. You have an Azure subscription that contains the resources shown in the following table. You create a virtual network named VNet2. In the West region, you plan to enable peering between VNet1 and VNet2. You need to ensure that the virtual machines connected to VNet2 can connect to VM1 and VM2 via LB1. What should you do? Option A, from the pairing settings of VNet2, set traffic forwarded from remote virtual network to allow. Option B, change the floating IP configurations of LB1. Option C, from the pairing settings of VNet1, set traffic forwarded from remote virtual network to allow. Option D, change the SKU of LB1. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D, change the SKU of LB1. Question 13. You have an Azure subscription that contains a virtual network named VNet1 and the virtual machines shown in the following table. All the virtual machines are connected to VNet1. You need to ensure that the applications hosted on the virtual machines can be accessed from the internet. The solution must ensure that the virtual machines share a single public IP address. What should you use? Option A, an internal load balancer. Option B, Azure Application Gateway. Option C, a NAT gateway. Option D, a public load balancer. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D, a public load balancer. Question 14. Case study. This is a case study. Case studies are not timed separately. You can use as much exam time as you would like to complete each case. However, there may be additional case studies and sections on this exam. You must manage your time to ensure that you are able to complete all questions included on this exam in the time provided. To answer the questions included in a case study, you will need to reference information that is provided in the case study. Case studies might contain exhibits and other resources that provide more information about the scenario that is described in the case study. Each question is independent of the other questions in this case study. At the end of this case study, a review screen will appear. This screen allows you to review your answers and to make changes before you move to the next section of the exam. After you begin a new section, you cannot return to this section to start the case study. To display the first question in this case study, click the Next button. Use the buttons in the left pane to explore the content of the case study before you answer the questions. Clicking these buttons displays information such as business requirements, existing environment, and problem statements. When you are ready to answer a question, click the question button to return to the question overview. Litware Inc. is a financial company that has a main data center in Boston and 20 branch offices across the United States. Users have Android, iOS, and Windows 10 devices. Existing environment: hybrid environment. The on-premises network contains an Active Directory forest named litwareinc.com that syncs to an Azure Active Directory. Azure AD tenant named litwareinc.com. By using Azure AD Connect, all offices connect to a virtual network named VNet1. By using a site-to-site VPN connection, Azure environment, Litware has an Azure subscription named Sub1 that is linked to the litwareinc.com Azure AD tenant. Sub 1 contains resources in the East Azure region as shown in the following table. A diagram of the resource in the East Azure region is shown in the Azure Network diagram exhibit. There is bidirectional peering between VNet 1 and VNet 2. There is bidirectional peering between VNet 1 and VNet 3. Currently, VNet 2 and VNet 3 cannot communicate directly. Azure Network diagram requirements. Business requirements. Litware wants to minimize costs whenever possible. As long as all other requirements are met. Virtual networking requirements. Litware identifies the following virtual networking requirements. Direct the default route of 0, 0, 0, 0/0 on VNet 2 and VNet 3 to the Boston data center over an express route circuit. Ensure that the records in the cloud litware.com can be resolved from the on-premises locations. Automatically register the DNS names of Azure virtual machines to the cloud litware.com zone. Minimize the size of the subnets allocated to platform managed services. Allow traffic from VM scale set 1 to VM scale set 2 on the TCP port 443. Only hybrid networking requirements. Litware identifies the following hybrid networking requirements. Users must be able to connect to VNet 1 by using a point-to-site P2S VPN when working remotely. Connections must be authenticated by Azure AD. Latency of the traffic between the Boston data center and all the virtual networks must be minimized. The Boston data center must connect to the Azure virtual networks by using an express route fastpath connection. Traffic between VNet 2 and VNet 3 must be routed through VNet 1. Past networking requirements. Litware identifies the following networking requirements for platform as a service. The storage 1 account must be accessible from all on-premises locations without exposing the public endpoint of storage 1. The storage 2 account must be accessible from VNet 2 and VNet 3. Without exposing the public endpoint of storage 2, you need to connect VNet 2 and VNet 3. The solution must meet the virtual networking requirements and the business requirements. Which two actions should you include in the solution? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note: each correct selection is worth 1 point. Option A. On the peering from VNet 1, select allow for traffic forwarded from remote virtual network. Option B. On the pairings from VNet 2 and VNet 3, select allow for traffic forwarded from remote virtual network. Option C. On the pairing from VNet 1, select use the remote virtual network's gateway or root server. Option D. On the pairing from VNet 1, select allow for traffic to remote virtual network. Option E. On the pairings from VNet 2 and VNet 3, select use the remote virtual network's gateway or root server. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B. On the pairings from VNet 2 and VNet 3, select allow for traffic forwarded from remote virtual network. Option E. On the pairings from VNet 2 and VNet 3, select use the remote virtual network's gateway or root server. Question 15. You have 3 on-premises networks. You have an Azure subscription that contains a basic Azure Virtual WAN. The Virtual WAN contains a single virtual hub and a virtual network gateway that is limited to a throughput of 1 Gbps. The on-premises networks connect to the virtual WAN by using site-to-site S2S VPN connections. You need to increase the throughput of the virtual WAN to 3 Gbps. The solution must minimize administrative effort. What should you do? Option A. Upgrade the virtual WAN to the standard SKU. Option B. Add an additional VPN gateway to the Azure subscription. Option C. Create an additional virtual hub. Option D. Increase the number of gateway scale units. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D. Increase the number of gateway scale units. Question 16. You have 10 on-premises networks that are connected by using a third-party software-defined wide area network SD-WAN solution. You have an Azure subscription that contains 5 virtual networks. You plan to connect the Azure virtual networks and the on-premises networks by using an Azure Virtual WAN. With a single Virtual WAN hub, you need to ensure that the Azure Virtual WAN can act as a node in the third-party SD-WAN solution. What should you include in the solution? Option A, an Azure Virtual WAN Express Route Gateway. Option B, a Network Virtual Appliance (NVA). Option C, a Site-to-Site Gateway (VPN Gateway). Option D, a point-to-site gateway user VPN gateway. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B, a Network Virtual Appliance (NVA). Question 17. You have an on-premises data center and an Azure subscription. You plan to implement Express Route FastPath. You need to create an Express Route Gateway. The solution must minimize downtime. If a single Azure data center fails, which SKU should you use? Option A, RGW1AZ. Option B, High Performance. Option C, Ultra Performance. Option D, ERGW3AZ. Option E, ERGW2AZ. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D, ERGW3AZ. Question 18. You have an Azure subscription that contains an Express Route Standard Gateway named GW1. You need to upgrade GW1 to support Express Route FastPath. The solution must minimize downtime. Which SKU should you use? Option A, Ultra Performance. Option B, ERGW3AZ. Option C, ERGW2AZ. Option D, High Performance. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, Ultra Performance. Question 19. Note: this question is part of a series of questions that present the same scenario. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question sets might have more than one correct solution, while others might not have a correct solution. After you answer a question in this section, you will not be able to return to it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the review screen. You have two Azure virtual networks named VNet1 and VNet2. You have a Windows 10 device named Client1 that connects to VNet1 by using a point-to-site P2S. IKEV2 VPN. You implement virtual network peering between VNet1 and VNet2. VNet1 allows gateway transit. VNet2 can use the remote gateway. You discover that Client 1 cannot communicate with VNet2. You need to ensure that Client 1 can communicate with VNet2. Solution: you reset the gateway of VNet1. Does this meet the goal? Option A, yes. Option B, no. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B, no. Question 20. Note: this question is part of a series of questions that present the same scenario. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question sets might have more than one correct solution, while others might not have a correct solution. After you answer a question in this section, you will not be able to return to it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the review screen. You have two Azure virtual networks named VNet1 and VNet2. You have a Windows 10 device named Client1 that connects to VNet1 by using a point-to-site P2S. IKEV2 VPN. You implement virtual network peering between VNet1 and VNet2. VNet1 allows gateway transit. VNet2 can use the remote gateway. You discover that Client 1 cannot communicate with VNet2. You need to ensure that client 1 can communicate with VNet 2. Solution. You enable BGP on the gateway of VNet 1. Does this meet the goal? Option A, yes. Option B, no. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B, no. Question 21. You plan to deploy Azure Virtual Network. You need to design the subnets which 3 types of resources require a dedicated subnet. Each correct answer presents a complete solution note. Each correct selection is worth 1 point. Option A, Azure Bastion. Option B, Azure Active Directory Domain Services, Azure ADDs. Option C, Azure Private Link. Option D, Azure Application Gateway version 2. Option E, VPN Gateway. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, Azure Bastion. Option D, Azure Application Gateway version 2. Option E, VPN Gateway. Question 22. Note: this question is part of a series of questions that present the same scenario. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question sets might have more than one correct solution, while others might not have a correct solution. After you answer a question in this section, you will not be able to return to it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the review screen. You have 2 Azure Virtual Networks named VNet 1 and VNet 2. You have a Windows 10 device named Client 1 that connects to VNet 1 by using a pointer site P2S. IKEV2 VPN. You implement virtual network peering between VNet 1 and VNet 2. VNet 1 allows gateway transit. VNet 2 can use the remote gateway. You discover that client 1 cannot communicate with VNet 2. You need to ensure that client 1 can communicate with VNet 2. Solution. You download and reinstall the VPN client configuration. Does this meet the goal? Option A, yes. Option B, no. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, yes. Question 23. You have an Azure Virtual Network named VNet 1 that hosts an Azure Firewall named FW1 and 150 virtual machines. VNet 1 is linked to a private DNS zone named contoso.com. All the virtual machines have their name registered in the contoso.com's own. VNet 1 connects to an on-premises data center by using ExpressRoute. You need to ensure that on-premises DNS servers can resolve the names in the contoso.com's own. Which 2 actions should you perform? Each correct answer presents part of the solution note. Each correct selection is worth 1 point. Option A, modify the DNS server settings of VNet 1. Option B, for FW1, configure custom DNS server. Option C, for FW1, enable DNS proxy. Option D, on the on-premises DNS servers, configure forwarders that point to the front-end IP address of FW1. Option E, on the on-premises DNS servers, configure forwarders that point to the Azure-provided DNS service at 168.63.129.16. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C, for FW1, enable DNS proxy. Option D, on the on-premises DNS servers, configure forwarders that point to the front-end IP address of FW1. Question 24. You are planning the IP addressing for the subnets in Azure Virtual Networks. Which type of resource requires IP addresses in the subnets? Option A, internal load balancers. Option B, storage account. Option C, Azure Virtual Networks NAT. Option D, service endpoint policies. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option A. Internal load balancers. Question 25. You have a hub and spoke topology. The topology includes multiple on-premises locations that connect to a hub virtual network in Azure via express route circuits. You have an Azure application gateway named GW1 that provides a single point of ingress from the internet. You plan to migrate the hub and spoke topology to Azure Virtual WAN. You need to identify which changes must be applied to the existing topology. The solution must ensure that you maintain a single point of ingress from the internet. Which 3 changes should you include in the solution? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Note: each correct selection is worth 1 point. Option A. Add user-defined routes. Option B. Add virtual network pairings. Option C. Replace the user-defined routes used by the current topology. Option D. Create virtual network connections. Option E. Remove the existing virtual network pairings. Option F. Redeploy GW1. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option C. Replace the user-defined routes used by the current topology. Option D. Create virtual network connections. Option E. Remove the existing virtual network pairings. Question 26. You have an application named App1 that listens for incoming requests on a pre-configured group of 50 TCP ports and UDP ports. You install App1 on 10 Azure virtual machines. You need to implement load balancing for App1 across all the virtual machines. The solution must minimize the number of load balancing rules. What should you include in the solution? Option A. Azure Application Gateway v2 that has multiple listeners. Option B. Azure Standard Load Balancer that has floating IP enabled. Option C. Azure Standard Load Balancer that has high availability hub ports enabled. Option D. Azure Application Gateway v2 that has multiple site hosting enabled. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option C. Azure Standard Load Balancer that has high availability hub ports enabled. Question 27. Note: this question is part of a series of questions that present the same scenario. Each question in the series contains a unique solution that might meet the stated goals. Some question sets might have more than one correct solution, while others might not have a correct solution. After you answer a question in this section, you will not be able to return to it. As a result, these questions will not appear in the review screen. You have 2 Azure virtual networks named VNet1 and VNet2. You have a Windows 10 device named Client1 that connects to VNet1 by using a pointer site P2S. IKEV2 VPN. You implement virtual network peering between VNet1 and VNet2. VNet1 allows gateway transit. VNet2 can use the remote gateway. You discover that Client 1 cannot communicate with VNet2. You need to ensure that Client 1 can communicate with VNet2. Solution: you resize the gateway of VNet1 to a larger SKU. Does this meet the goal? Option A: yes. Option B: no. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option B: no. Question 28. You have an Azure subscription that contains the virtual networks shown in the following table. You plan to deploy an Azure firewall named AF1 to RG1 in the West Azure region. To which virtual networks can you deploy AF1? Option A: VNet1 and VNet4 only. Option B: VNet1, VNet2, VNet3, and VNet4. Option C: VNet1 only. Option D: VNet1 and VNet2 only. Option E: VNet1, VNet2, and VNet4 only. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is Option C: VNet1 only. Question 29. Your company has 4 branch offices and an Azure subscription. The subscription contains an Azure VPN gateway named GW1. The branch offices are configured as shown in the following table. The branch office routers provide internet connectivity and site-to-site VPN connections to GW1. The users in branch 1 report that they can connect to internet resources but cannot access Azure resources. You need to ensure that the branch 1 users can connect to the Azure resources. The solution must meet the following requirements: minimize downtime for all users, minimize administrative effort. What should you do first? Option A, recreate LNG1. Option B, reset RTR1. Option C, reset connection 1. Option D, reset GW1. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C, reset connection 1. Question 30. You have an Azure subscription that contains the resources shown in the following table. You plan to deploy an Azure Virtual Network NAT gateway named Gateway 1. The solution must meet the following requirements. VM1 will access the internet by using its public IP address. VM2 will access the internet by using its public IP address. Administrative effort must be minimized. You need to ensure that you can deploy Gateway 1 to VNet 1. What is the minimum number of subnets required on VNet 1? Option A 2, Option B 3, Option C 4, Option D 5. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C 4. Question 31. Your company has 5 offices. Each office has a firewall device and a local internet connection. The offices connect to a third-party SD-WAN. You have an Azure subscription that contains a virtual network named VNet 1. VNet 1 contains a virtual network gateway named Gateway 1. Each office connects to Gateway 1 by using a site-to-site VPN connection. You need to replace the third-party SD-WAN with an Azure Virtual WAN. What should you include in the solution? Option A, delete Gateway 1. Option B, create new point-to-site P2S VPN connections on the firewall devices. Option C, create an Azure Traffic Manager profile. Option D, enable active mode on Gateway 1. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, delete Gateway 1. Question 32. You are planning the IP addressing for the subnets in Azure Virtual Networks. Which type of resource requires IP addresses in the subnets? Option A, internal load balancers. Option B, Azure DDoS protection for virtual networks. Option C, service endpoint policies. Option D, service endpoints. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, internal load balancers. Question 33. You have an Azure subscription that contains 2 virtual networks named VNet 1, VNet 2, VNet 3, and VNet 4. You plan to deploy a hub and spoke topology by using virtual network peering. You need to configure VNet 1 as the hub network. The solution must meet the following requirements: support transitive routing between spokes, maximize network throughput. What should you include in the solution? Option A, Azure VPN gateway. Option B, Azure root server. Option C, Azure private link. Option D, Azure firewall. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D, Azure firewall. Question 34. You are planning the IP addressing for the subnets in Azure Virtual Networks. Which type of resource requires IP addresses in the subnets? Option A, internal load balancers. Option B, Azure DDoS protection for virtual networks. Option C, service endpoint policies. Option D, service endpoints. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, internal load balancers. Question 35. You are planning the IP addressing for the subnets in Azure Virtual Networks. Which type of resource requires IP addresses in the subnets? Option A, storage account. Option B, internal load balancers. Option C, service endpoints. Option D, virtual network peering. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B, internal load balancers. Question 36. You have the on-premises networks shown in the following table. You have an Azure subscription that contains an Azure Virtual WAN named VWAN and a virtual network named VNet1. VWAN is connected to the on-premises networks, and VNet1 in a full mesh topology. The virtual hub routing preference for VWAN1 is as part you need to route traffic from VNet1 to 106.1.1.5. Which path will be used? Option A, the VPN connection to branch 1. Option B, the VPN connection to branch 2. Option C, the express route connection to branch 2. Option D, the express route connection to branch 3. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option D, the express route connection to branch 3. Question 37. You have an Azure subscription that contains a virtual network named VNet1. You deploy several web apps and configure the apps to use private endpoints on VNet1. You need to identify which DNS records the web apps registered automatically. Where will the records be created? Option A, an Azure DNS zone named PrivateLink Azure Websites Net. Option B, an Azure private DNS zone named Azure Websites Net. Option C, an Azure private DNS zone named PrivateLink Azure Websites Net. Option D, an Azure DNS zone named Azure Websites Net. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option C, an Azure private DNS zone named PrivateLink Azure Websites Net. Question 38. You are planning the IP addressing for the subnets in Azure Virtual Networks. Which type of resource requires IP addresses in the subnets? Option A, storage account. Option B, internal load balancers. Option C, service endpoints. Option D, service endpoint policies. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B, internal load balancers. Question 39. You have the Azure Virtual Networks shown in the following table. You deploy Azure Firewall to VNet 3. You need to ensure that the traffic from subnet 11 to subnet 21 passes through the firewall. What should you configure? Option A, peering links between VNet 1 and VNet 2. Option B, a route table associated to subnet 11 and subnet 21. Option C, an Azure private DNS zone. Option D, a route table associated to Azure Firewall subnet. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option B, a route table associated to subnet 11 and subnet 21. Question 40. You plan to implement an Azure virtual network that will contain 10 virtual subnets. The subnets will use IPv6 addresses. Each subnet will host up to 200 load-balanced virtual machines. You need to recommend which subnet mask sites to use for the virtual subnets. What should you recommend? Option A, 64. Option B, /120. Option C, /48. Option D, 24. Choose the correct answer. Correct answer is option A, 64.